So what brings you to the Parliament?
God.
That was simple.
Oh, basically, a couple of reasons. I believe in strategic alliances. Basically, the world, I think, will change as alliances of the heart are created, as individuals meet each other from the center, beyond their social structure, beyond their religious structure, beyond who they say they're representing. And I think since the last Parliament, I discovered I made some really good friendships there that have lasted over the last 4 or 5 years, and we've done some good things together. So I think number one is to come and meet people and allow for those relationships to then become a way to further the peace and the compassion on the planet.
Here we are at we're sort of meeting place of all the great ancient traditions and a lot of new ones too. And we're kind of looking at, well, how are the traditions meeting the challenges that we're facing in the world today? Because in many ways we're in a completely different world than the world out of which most of these great traditions emerge.
So you're asking me, first of all, are they meeting the challenge at all?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then how they need to change. And within the traditions, I think there's always the radical fundamentalists, those who are really sticking to their ancient ways of being, and a lot of it has become dogmatic. I don't know if in fact they are meeting the challenge of the world that's changing very, very, very fast. But there are progressive elements within every tradition. And I think those progressive elements are individuals who are tied into probably more of the mystical tenets of their teaching. And they're allowing the practice of those mystical tenets to transform their life, so that their life is actually meeting the challenge of today. Not necessarily their religion, but they as individuals who have embodied the core of their teaching, then they're meeting the challenge. And I think those people have a tendency to recognize each other across religious boundaries, whereas those who are stuck just in being however they identify themselves, they probably can't recognize anybody but somebody who's wearing their same robe, has the same dot on their forehead, or is the same religion. And they're stuck in a way that's passing us by very fast, and is probably adding to the dissension and the crisis of our day. So I think if one really practices their religion, and I don't mean having an abstract set of beliefs, but discovers a way of anchoring the religion in clear choice, in clear action, that's tied into the mysticism, then they will probably meet the challenge of today. They will be in the vanguard of something tremendously beneficial for the planet.
How do you think the traditions, by and large, need to change to meet the demands of our time?
There has to be a radical appreciation of each other's tradition. So we begin to discover that at the core, it's pretty much the same thing. That when you strip away the culture and some of the things that were developed based on what was happening at that time in history, you'll discover some basic truths that can be practiced. Now, they may be practiced differently, different forms of meditation, different forms of service, etc. But if one is willing to let go of their biases and their prejudices and appreciate someone else's stand, and then begin to see that at essence, it's about the same, there'll be a tremendous, it'll be a revolution in the evolution of religion, period. And I think you'll start to break down the shell of religion, and this essence will be more available to everyone, which is the fundamental practice of the presence of life, the presence of God, the presence of love being everywhere, in and as everyone.
How do you think that will change the face of religion on the planet, what you described?
People won't be as territorial as my God is better than your God, my religion is better than your religion, my way is better than your religion. I think there'll be an embracing and an acceptance of what works for an individual, whatever name you call it, you see. I think that just brings about a tremendous amount of assist in bringing about the peace that we're all striving for.
Do you think the religions will become more alike? They'll start to move towards some kind of universal human religion in some sense?
In a sense, I think people will always, because they're humans, you know, have a tendency to want to hold on to the shell a little bit. That doesn't bother me, but everybody can celebrate their shell, you know, just like people can celebrate their gender, they can celebrate their sexual orientation, they can celebrate their race. But if you don't allow the celebration of those shells to get in the way of the essence, then it's okay. But if you want to just celebrate those particular shells and it gets in the way of the essence, then there's a problem.
Would it be possible for an ancient tradition to move forward while having to, at least to a certain degree, relinquish this deep attachment to some of the fundamental myths, you know, and still maintain their fundamental identity?
But I think that even if they don't let the myths go, they may have to reinterpret them to a degree to make them fit modern times. So I think a lot of the young folks, they have a kind of an existential angst because they don't relate to a lot of the old myths. It doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
It's either airy-fairy or, and so there's a void that they're filling. So there needs to be a kind of a re-enchantment that happens now. In the modern world. I mean, these young kids coming up can jump on a computer and in seconds download just about anything. And they're not going to be captured by an old story necessarily.
Right, exactly. Right.
And so there has to be a way that we enchant them, and we either reinterpret the old myths or we have to really bring about some strong ethics, some strong ways of being in the world, some strong making that stuff real in our life. That's transformational.
We have to create not new myths necessarily, but a new context that's going to serve the same purpose, the same function for us. Yeah.
Without that, they're just dead shells, you know. And people that are practicing their religion over and over and over without the heart, that's just tradition. That's not necessarily religion.
Right.
I think there's a difference between tradition and having a real religious experience or a real awakening. And there are many people who hold fast for tradition even though it doesn't have any transformational value in their life. But they'll fight for it and they'll die for it and they'll make their kids be a part of it, even though they're sad and they're upset and they're fearful. Which, if you have a transformational, if something has a transformational impact on you, then there's joy, and there's happiness, and there's a degree of fearlessness, and a degree of creativity in your life. And a lot of the old shells, they're going to have to be transformed from within out. Or it may be blasphemous to say, or in some cases discarded all the way. To awake to a whole new paradigm, you see.